Welcome to Scotland at 7. My name is Brian Liddy. I'll start with the coronavirus update. As of 2 p.m. today, a total of 2,085,149 people in Scotland have been tested through NHS Scotland labs and UK government regional testing centres since the start of the pandemic. Of these, 1,849,764 people have been confirmed negative, while 235,911 people have tested positive. There are 419 new cases of COVID-19 confirmed by a test, although not everyone with the virus will display symptoms and not all those with symptoms will be tested. There's one new reported death, I'm sorry to say, of someone who has tested positive. The number of patients in Scotland who have died from complications caused by the coronavirus COVID-19 infection now stands at 7,669. This number only includes those who have died having received a positive test for the virus in the previous 28 days. Of the people who have tested positive, 110 were in hospital last night, while 8 of them were in intensive care. As of 8 a.m. this morning, 3,251,138 people have received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccination, and 2,044,253 people have received their second dose. The latest UK daily figures show that 127,782 patients who tested positive for COVID-19 have sadly died from their illness. That's an increase of 1 since yesterday. This number refers to deaths in all settings, not just in hospitals. So moving on to then, we have new treatment standards for drug users in Scotland. New standards for the treatment of drug users will ensure everyone has access to the support which works best for them. The 10 new standards published today by the Drug Deaths Task Force will reinforce a rights-based approach for people who use drugs and the treatment they should expect regardless of where they live. Funding from the additional £50 million for drug services announced by the First Minister in January will ensure that all alcohol and drug partnerships are supported by the Scottish Government to embed the standards by April 2022. They make clear that people must be able to start receiving support the day that they ask for it, and emphasise the importance of allowing people to make informed choices about the type of medication and help that is available to them. These 10 standards apply to medication-assisted treatment, or MAT, which is the term used to refer to the use of medication, such as opioids, together with any psychological and social support in the treatment and care of people who experience drug problems with drug use. The medicated assistant treatments, or MAT, standards are: all people accessing services have the option to start MAT from the same day of presentation. All people are supported to make an informed choice on what medication to use for MAT and the appropriate dose. All people at high risk of drug-related harm are proactively identified and offered support to recommence or continue MAT. All people are offered evidence-based harm reduction at the point of MAT delivery. All people will receive support to remain in treatment for as long as requested. The system that provides MAT is psychologically and trauma-informed for Tier 1 and routinely delivers evidence-based low-intensity psychosocial interventions in Tier 2 and supports the development of social networks. All people who have the option of MAT shared with primary care. All people have access to advocacy and support for housing, welfare and income needs. All people with occurring drug use and mental health difficulties can receive mental health care at the point of MAT delivery. And finally, all people receive trauma-informed care. The next news item is a woman arrested in connection with the Ibrox incident on the 15th of May. Following a CCTV appeal to identify persons alleged to have committed offences during an incident at Ibrox Stadium in George Square on the 15th of May, Police Scotland today announced that a 28-year-old woman had been arrested and charged in connection with their investigation. She's been released on an undertaking to appear in court at a later date. A report will be submitted to the Procurator Fiscal. Police Scotland confirmed that there have now been a total of 30 arrests from George Square and 1 from Ibrox in relation to their ongoing inquiry into alleged public disorder offences by Rangers fans. The US spied on Merkel and other Europeans through Danish cables. The United States National Security Agency, or the NSA, used a partnership with Denmark's Foreign Intelligence Unit to spy on senior officials of neighbouring countries, including the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, the Danish state broadcaster DR has revealed. The findings are the result of a 2015 internal investigation in the Danish Defence Intelligence Service into the NSA's role in the partnership, DR said. They've cited 9 unnamed sources with access to the investigation. According to the investigation, which covered the period from 2012 to 2014, the NSA used Danish information cables to spy on senior officials in Sweden, Norway, France, and Germany. Apologies. Where was I? The NSA used Danish information cables to spy on senior officials in Sweden, Norway, France, and Germany, including former German Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier and former German opposition leader Peer Steinbrück. Asked for comment on the DR report, a spokesperson for the German Chancellery said it only became aware of the allegations when asked about them by journalists and declined to comment further. Danish Defence Minister Trine Bramsen declined to comment on speculation about the intelligence matters in the media. I can more generally say that this government has the same attitude as the former Prime Minister expressed in 2013 and 2014. Systematic wiretapping of close allies is unacceptable, Bramsen told Reuters in a statement. In Washington, the NSA and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, or the DNI for short, declined to comment. A spokesperson for the Danish Defence Intelligence Service also declined to comment. Denmark, a close ally of the United States, hosts several key landing stations for subsea internet cables, and from Sweden, Norway, Germany, Holiday and Britain. Through targeted retrievals and the use of NSA-developed analysis software, known as X-Keyscore, NSA intercepted both calls, texts and chat messages to and from telephones of officials in the neighbouring countries, sources told DR. The internal investigation in the Danish Defence Intelligence Service was launched in 2014 following concerns about former NSA employee Edward Snowden's leaks the previous year, revealing how the NSA works, according to DR. Snowden fled the United States after leaking secret NSA files in 2013 and was given asylum in Russia. Following DR's report, Snowden reported a cryptic Danish language comment on Twitter saying, "If only there had been some reason to investigate many, many years ago, oh, why didn't anyone warn us?" A decision in August last year to suspend the head of Danish Defence Intelligence Services and 3 other officials following criticism and accusations of serious wrongdoings from an independent board overseeing the agency centred on the 2015 investigation, according to DR. Denmark said last year it would initiate an investigation into the case based on information from a whistleblower report. That investigation is expected to be concluded later this year. Netanyahu's grip on power loosens as rival moves to unseat him. The far-right Israeli politician Naftali Bennett will be the country's next Prime Minister under a proposed power-sharing deal intended to oust Benjamin Netanyahu, the head of the opposition has confirmed. Yair Lapid said in a speech on Monday that his efforts to forge a coalition of ideologically opposed parties could lead to a new government within days, and with it Netanyahu's removal from office after 12 years in power. In his speech for the first time, Lapid referred to Bennett, a far-right religious nationalist and strong advocate for the settler movement in Palestinian territories, as the intended Prime Minister. A source in Lapid's Yesh Atid party confirmed that the deal would lead to Bennett becoming Prime Minister first and later handing power to Lapid. The source said an agreement on how they would split a 4-year term was not final. Netanyahu's political rivals are rushing to cement a deal to oust him before a Wednesday deadline as the Prime Minister and Israel's longest-serving leader scrambles to frustrate their attempts. The announcement of the Lapid-Bennett partnership, first made on Sunday, was a blow to Netanyahu, not only as Bennett was an erstwhile ally, but because his Yamina party's 7 seats in Parliament could be critical to helping Lapid form a government. This gives Bennett the status of kingmaker. Negotiations between Yamina and Lapid's party, Yesh Atid, continue until the early hours of the morning and resumed later in the day. Further political wrangling is needed for Lapid to form a 61-seat majority in the 120-seat parliament, the Knesset. He has already made preliminary deals with several other parties from the establishment, Labour and anti-occupation merits parties to Israel Baitanu. Forgive me Let's see if I can find this on paper. Further political wrangling is needed. Okay. So, excuse me. Further political wrangling is needed for Lapid to form a 61-seat majority in the 120-seat parliament, the Knesset. He has already made preliminary deals with several other parties, from the establishment, Labour and anti-occupation merits parties to Israel Baitanu, a hardline party led by a Moldova-born settler, Avigdor Lieberman. Crucially, Lapid is likely to need outside backing from Arab members of parliament, possibly Islamists, who he hopes will set aside ideological differences for the shared aim of dethroning King Bibi, as Netanyahu is known. While Lapid is a self-proclaimed centrist, he has also described himself as a security hawk and provided only tepid encouragement to the prospect of ending the occupation. His fragile and ideologically diverse government would be expected to focus on the economy and the pandemic while avoiding addressing the state of millions of Palestinians living under Israeli rule. If Lapid succeeds before midnight on Wednesday, he could inform the country's president, Reuven Rivlin, that he believes he can form a government, which would then go to the Knesset for a vote. The swearing in of the new government could happen within a week. If the deal is successful, it could end both a political deadlock that has brought 4 snap elections since 2019 and Netanyahu's stretch as Prime Minister. Netanyahu's Likud party won the most seats in a March election and was given 28 days to build a majority coalition government, but failed to do so. To block Lapid, he has sought to embarrass right-wing politicians such as Bennett, accusing him of abandoning voters. And apologies for the break in the news there and any repetition that happened on the way. Belarusian opposition leader believes Roman Protasevich was tortured. Russia vows to defend Belarus. Belarus's leading opposition politician, Svetlana, forgive me for mispronunciation, but Svetlana Shikhinskaya has said that detained blogger Roman Protasevich has been beaten and tortured in jail. A lawyer who visited Protasevich and his girlfriend Sofia Sapega said he was fine, but it's doubtful because for sure he was tortured, for sure he was beaten, she told reporters at a news conference in Tallinn today. Protasevich and his girlfriend Sofia Sapega were detained on the 23rd of May after their plane was forced to land in Minsk. Shikhinskaya offered no evidence for her assertion, though Protasevich's family has also said a video of him from detention showed signs of torture. Meanwhile, the RIA news agency cited a Russian foreign minister official as saying that Russia will defend Belarus and help it if the European Union imposes economic sanctions on Minsk over the grounding of a plane and the arrest of Roman Protasevich. Many European nations have imposed flight bans on Belarusian aviation over the forced landing of the Ryanair flight on May 23rd. The EU is considering further sanctions. China lifts the cap on births per family to 3. Today, China announced that married couples may have up to 3 children, a major shift policy from the existing limit of 2 after recent data showed a dramatic decline in births in the world's most populous country. Beijing scrapped its decades-old one-child policy in 2016, replacing it with a 2-child limit that failed to result in a sustained surge in births given the high costs of raising children in Chinese cities, a challenge that remains. The official Xinhua news agency reported that to further optimise the birth policy, China will implement a one-married couple can have 3 children policy in a statement following a Politburo meeting chaired by President Xi Jinping. The statement said that the policy change will come with supportive measures which will be conducive to improving China's population structure, fulfilling the country's strategy of actively coping with an ageing population and maintaining the country's advantage in human resources. And we've got breaking news. Joanna Cherry has just tweeted. The tweet says, "I've resigned from the NEC of the SNP. A number of factors have prevented me from fulfilling the mandate party members gave me to improve transparency and scrutiny and to uphold the party's constitution. I won't be making any further comment at this stage." Next news item is Texas voter suppression bill blocked by no quorum. Democrats in the Texas House of Representatives boycotted a legislative session late last night, blocking a vote on an election reform bill critics said would make it harder for blacks and Hispanics to vote. With just over an hour before the midnight deadline to pass the measure, Republican members of the House said that Democrats had walked out to deny the House a quorum for a vote. The Texas House went into recess until 10 a.m. local time today, beyond the midnight Sunday deadline to pass legislation in this session. A vote on the measure is certain to pass the Republican-dominated House. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who strongly supports the bill, said in a late Sunday emailed statement that the bill would be added to a special legislative session planned for the autumn. Supporters of the legislation said it was needed to bolster election security. The United States' second most populous state already has some of the most restrictive electoral laws in the country, even without the pending bill. The proposed bill states that the changes are not intended to impair the right of free suffrage, but are necessary to prevent fraud in the electoral process. Democrats and civil rights groups argue that such legislation disproportionately burdens or discourages voters of colour, as well as the elderly and the disabled. There were no allegations of substantial fraud in Texas in last year's election, and Republicans maintained their 3-decade grip on all statewide offices. New lung cancer detection campaign. A bold Detect Cancer Early, or DCE campaign, is encouraging people to contact their GP if they have a new or different persistent cough or unusual breathlessness for 3 weeks or more in an effort to return to pre-pandemic cancer detection levels. These could be the early signs of lung cancer, and it's important to get checked, especially if you're over 40. While lung cancer is the most common cancer in Scotland, with around 5,500 new cases diagnosed every year, more people than ever are surviving the disease. This is down to improved treatments and more people being diagnosed earlier. The campaign has been developed in response to Public Health Scotland's data that shows around 25% fewer lung cancers are being diagnosed now compared to pre-COVID-19. This, coupled with the fear of a potential cancer diagnosis, continues This, coupled with the fear of a potential cancer diagnosis, continues to stop people acting early when there are more treatment options available and the chance of survival is higher. The campaign, entitled Settling In, aims to empower people to take responsibility for getting any potential symptoms checked. Since the launch of our £43 million Detect Cancer Early programme, the proportion of lung cancer diagnoses at the earliest stage have increased by 43% and by 57% in the most deprived areas in Scotland. Prehistoric animal carvings discovered for the first time in Scotland. Prehistoric animal carvings, thought to be between 4,000 and 5,000 years old, have been discovered for the first time in Scotland, hidden in Duncraig Cairn in Kilmartin Glen, Historic Environment Scotland has announced. The carvings, thought to date to the Neolithic or Early Bronze Age, include depictions of 2 male red deer, which are considered to have been the largest deer species in Scotland at that time. Full-grown antlers can be seen on both animals, while anatomical details, including a short tail, can be seen on one. 3 quadrupeds are also visible, 2 of which are thought to be juvenile deer. Valuable as sources of meat, hides and bones and antlers used as a variety of tools, deer would have been very important to local communities during the Neolithic and Early Bronze Age. These are the earliest known animal carvings in Scotland and the first clear examples of deer carvings from the Neolithic to Early Bronze Age in the whole of the UK. The carvings were discovered by chance by Hamish Fenton, who has a background in archaeology, while visiting the Kilmartin Glen. The carvings are located inside Duncraig Cairn on the capstone of an Early Bronze Age burial cist. Kilmartin Glen has one of the most important concentrations of Neolithic and Bronze Age remains in mainland Scotland, including some of the finest cup and ring markings in the country. This is the first time that animal carvings of this date have been discovered in an area with cup and ring markings in the UK. There are over 3,000 prehistoric carved rocks in Scotland. The vast majority are cup and ring markings, which are abstract motifs created by striking the rock surface with a stone tool, such as a large river-washed pebble. Most commonly, cup and ring markings are composed of a central cup mark surrounded by pecked concentric circles. While many of these mysterious carvings can still be seen in the open landscape today, we know little about how they were used or what purpose they served. And that's the end of the news here on Scotland at 7. So it only goes for me to say thank you for joining us. And as usual, we'd just like to say that if you could spare any time or money, either to volunteer or to help keep the studio and the TV broadcast going, it'd be very much appreciated. You can see where to find details at the email address below me here on the screen here at Support Broadcasting Scotland. So thank you and good night, and I hope you enjoy what's left of the bank holiday weekend.
How do you mean no more commission?
Well, no one in Scotland can commission an idea. You know, if I went to BBC Scotland and I said, oh, I've got this great idea for a sitcom, I've got this brilliant idea for a drama, you know, there isn't one person in Scotland that can okay it unless it goes through London.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of Full Scottish. What's happening today?
Hello and welcome to the Full Scottish here on Broadcasting Scotland.
Scotland is going to be an independent country.
That need, that desire for independence is ever stronger than perhaps it was in 2014. So there's an obligation that we've got to give leadership to that campaign. That's what Nicola Sturgeon, as our First Minister, has been doing.
My feeling about Boris Johnson is he can't be trusted on anything.
That is now and forever will be known as the rape cause.
I'm old enough to remember going into Europe in '73, and I remember how much of a razor's edge that was a balanced stone. And I think we made it by 53%, if I remember correctly, for going in. And ever since that time, England particularly has been pretty much schizophrenic, down the middle about whether it felt British or whether it felt European. And that schism, that crack has remained throughout English society ever since.
Scotland means business. Scotland's voice won't be stilled, it won't be silenced, it has to be heard.
About the work that's been done by Broadcasting Scotland in giving community activists, yes activists, Scottish activists a platform other than the traditional media outlets.